Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the session. I'm your host for the day, Surabhi Arora. I feel immense pleasure to welcome our guest, Dr. Chandrasekhar, today. Well, if I have to talk about Dr. Chandrasekhar, there's an exhaustive list of achievements at the young age he has already achieved. But to begin with, being an IIM Lucknow alumni, he has some immense experience in the field of management. He has some over 16 years of experience in education space and serves as the CEO of Chain Group of Institutes. He is a Rex Karamveer Global Education Chain Champion Fellow 2019 and was ranked 7th in World Education World's ranking of 33 young rising stars of Indian education in March 2017. Well, he is a TEDx speaker and as a president's distinguished district director of Toastmasters International, we all are aware about. He's also the co-founder and honorary treasurer of Samadhu Trust Envisioning. Hashtag Rabies Free India. Well, more about if I want to address about, he has a mission more to impact 1 million children through his work and wants to leverage his experience in education sector to build a better schooling system in India. Well, this is not the first meet he's addressing, and he has spared some time for all the school leaders today. He has spoken to more than 30,000 people throughout 4 continents and is ranked 1% of a group of 300 leading professional speakers in India. For 15 years, he has worked at the intersection of education and entrepreneurship to enable successful ecosystem. I'm glad that Dr. Chandra was able to spare some time for us today and for educators and leaders throughout various schools who want to know that how well they could manage financials in their schools, especially in this phase of lockdown. Uh, so that's why we have him with us. Welcome to the section, Dr. Chandra.
Thank you, Survi. Thank you very much. Good afternoon to you.
Okay, thank you. Well, Dr. Chandra, we will reach to our questions. I have a good list for you where my participants have already asked a lot many questions, which I want to discuss with you. But before that, we would love to know your perspective as a school leader, as an educator on present situation. This is some sort of a situation we all never predicted. If I talk about schools and what I've learned from other educators I've been with, school has always been a sort of, I must say, if I call it a business model, where we've always believed that what may happen, at least the pieces or the income source will keep on flowing throughout the year. So this type of setback was not expected by any school, especially a school which has been settled for last 10 years or 15 years into the education scenario. So what is your broader perspective on present situation and how do you see it as a school leader?
All right. Thank you very much. Once again, to all the participants and the attendees, good afternoon to all of you. And I'm really excited and happy to be a part of this interaction with all of you. And I thank Surbi to begin with for connecting people, like-minded people in the education sector, bringing out some perspectives on her platform, and also making this a consortium of people who can learn, live, and also grow together. Thank you once again, Surbi, and good afternoon. Now, coming up to the point, in terms of today's unprecedented scenario we are all going through, as we all know that this was least expected, at least in the education sector, especially in this part of the calendar year. I want to begin from there because March is the most busiest month in every school and every institution I am aware of in India. You have examinations, assessments, you have admissions, you have new planning for the academic year, and recruitments are going on, a lot of things. And I'm sure every principal, every school leader, school owner is neck deep with work. But today, what we saw was totally the opposite. We were forced to stay at homes, not step out, and then the buildings were shut down, and we had to compromise on a lot of things and put our plans out of the window. Having said that, the one thing which I'm really, really proud of, and I want to show that gratitude upfront in this session also. I've been doing that in all the webinars I've been participating because this has taken me by surprise and also with a great deal of hope. The kind of change our teachers, our educators have shown and embraced that change and risen to the occasion in a quick span of 1 to 2 weeks. I repeat, 1 to 2 weeks, our teachers have actually reinvented themselves. Because when I say this, I'm aware of some of the teachers who even used to struggle to create an email ID. They were scared. It's not about they did not know or did not want to, but they were fearing the unknown. But today, the same teachers not only have an email, they have a Google Classroom on their own. They're able to connect with teachers and children, and they're able to deliver value and lessons to them. So I must put on record at the outset that the kind of work and the kind of change they have brought in themselves in their approach and attitude, hats off to all the teachers. And teachers, you're listening to this, my respect to you to start with. The second thing which I want to talk about is, what about this lockdown? How long is it for schools to get back to normalcy, or as they call, the new normal? In my opinion, the new normal is already here. We are already embracing it, we are experiencing it. But it will take some more time for us to get back to our school buildings, our campuses, and get back to our offices to resume our work. Of course, from today, the lockdown has majorly been relaxed in almost entire country, where the private offices, the public government service offices, and also shops and establishments are allowed to function. Schools also might function as far as their admin staff is concerned. However, it will take a lot of time for children to come back. But then there lies the hope that the new normal is going to make things better and easier for us, as we have already done. We are connecting with our children online. Now, I don't want any educator to lose that hope. I don't want any school owner to feel that this is the end of the world. And that is something which we need to hold on, because let me tell you, as the saying goes, at the top, we are all lonely. This forum will bring us together, and forums like these will help us to feel that there are other shoulders which are going to join us, and we have to tread through this together. The third point and the last point which I want to make here is my own experience. The topic today is financial management of schools during lockdown. And I'm sure Surbi has a host of questions lined up, and I'm going to talk all of them and do my best to answer them. But I want to share with you our own experience at JGI Schools. Who is JGI Schools, and what do we do, and where do we belong? JGI is headquartered in Bangalore in Karnataka. We are a 30-plus-year-old organization, Jain Group of Institutions. You must have heard of Jain International Residential School, ranked number 5, top number 5 in Asia. That belongs to our group. And we are not just a school, we are not just a group of schools, we are a cradle to career education provider. We start up front from the kindergarten, called as Jain Toddlers, and we go up to Jain University, which is delivering higher education programs and courses. This entire group, the founder chairman is Dr. Roychan Chenraj, and I had the honor and privilege of being associated with him and the group for the last 18 years. Now, the challenge which we are facing, similar to all of you, is one, we don't have income in terms of fees coming in at least from March 15th, 2020. Last 2.5 months, we have not seen a single rupee coming into our account, because the government has made a government order here. We call it as a GO in Telangana, in Hyderabad, and some parts of the southern states. I'm sure this is the case even in the northern states as well, that you cannot force parents to pay the fees. Secondly, you got to take care of your staff. You got to take care of their salaries. You got to make sure that they're all comfortable, because their families are dependent on them. Now, making that end meet is a Herculean task and a challenge in itself. And I'm sure all school owners have done their best in making sure that they do not ostracize their staff members or abandon them. So that's been our experience. What we have done personally is we have tried to take care of our staff members to the best. We ensured that we paid them the full salary for the month of March, although the schools were shut down in between. April onwards, we came up with the deferment model, where we made the payment to maybe 50 to 60% of their salaries. And then we assured them that once the school gets back to normalcy, that remaining part will be paid back to you. So that is one step which we have taken. But let me make this clear on record. So far, as I'm speaking to you on the 19th of May, we have not sacked or said sorry and bye to any staff member. That's what I would like to say. So let's go through this together, and I'm sure the questions which will come will make me answer more and give you as realistic examples and stories as possible, because I'm not here to try to tell you or paint a picture. Everything is going to be fine. Everything is normal. I'm a superhuman. I'm going to save the world. That's not going to happen. So let's get realistic. Thank you, Survi.
Thank you, Dr. Chandra, for giving us a broader picture to the complete scenario on how Dream Group has gone ahead and taken up with certain initiatives. I would like to begin with my questions because the list is exhaustive. So,
Sure.
when I received all those queries, I was able to differentiate the schools into certain categories to understand that what challenges they are facing. I would like to begin with that. So, I could differentiate first basis on finances as in debt and without any debt. So some schools are there who have their loans and EMIs they have picked up, and there are certain schools who are doing okay, but they don't have any loans or EMIs. Then there is a second classification I was able to do in case of school categories. So we come across certain schools which are self-sufficient in a way that they had enough corpus to survive maybe 6 months or 8 months of the situation. So they have that availability with them. Maybe they did not invest. Now there is the second type of school which I get to know from all the interactions we are having, neck to neck, I must say, that they used to get the pieces and they used to get the salary. So they are those schools. So the amount they have actually gathered, the same amount was distributed amongst everybody in the system. Now there was a third category in this whole arena, which was just maybe 5 years old or 6 year old and was into a state of evolving. Maybe a startup school. We don't use terms such as startup or a business model for schools due to social setbacks. We is not associated, but I would still say some school which is just starting up and was into the evolving phase, and now in present scenario they were already investing every sort of money into the system with some amount they were receiving from the market, but now they are completely into a phase where nothing is possible for them. They are not even gaining anything right now. So based on all the three categories, I could shortlist these two major categories, which were the schools which are in debt, one, the second, the schools which are evolving, and third, the schools which were neck to neck to take care of. So my first question is, what should the schools which are already in debt do in present scenario to work out in this situation? So that's my first question for you.
All right, very well categorized. Yes, all schools are going through their own shares of worries. And to answer that question in terms of how do schools who are categorized as in-debt schools cope up with this particular lockdown? Well, I think in my personal opinion, there are a couple of things which these schools should ideally do. Number one, look up their expense statement and look at the areas where your debt needs to be respected or honored and managed. What I mean by that, you know that the government has given a 3 month and now they're extending it by another quarter in terms of the moratorium. So you have that kind of time to make the payment for those debts, assuming that you have secured your loans from the organized sector. When you're out securing it from the organized sector, you have definitely that benefit which you can go to the banks and talk to them. And the best part is the banks are quite understanding of the school and the education sector. That much is a support. So you will have to talk and try to defer your EMIs and try to manage your debt. That is one. The second thing is you'll have to run down your costs. You'll have to run down your costs, and this is where your projections will come into picture. What do I mean by that? See, let's understand the reality. Of course, lockdown came sudden, but then the schools are not going to come back to operations anytime before July. That's the reality as of now. The safest is August. As I'm speaking to you, I just heard the news from the neighboring state here, Andhra Pradesh, the southern state, where the chief minister has declared that the schools are going to open on the 3rd of August. So, taking that as a reference point, I'm saying the schools will never come open up before July, at least in this part of the world. So see that wherever you can cut costs, wherever you can actually reduce costs, not cut costs, because cut cost will be a wrong thing. Reducing cost is maybe you will not need that kind of work to be done with your transport sector or with your food and beverage sector if you are running it, or any other things. So see that you can reduce that and re-employ that fund to service your debt. Because remember, the one thing is to take a deferment, but the other thing is certain statutory payments cannot be put on hold. So you need to do that. And the other way to do it is the SIDBI, the Small Industries Development Board of India, is providing a lot of collateral free loans and also low interest loans. So you can even look at that and try to take a working capital fix and try to take care of the debt part, but never over borrow. That's my suggestion.
Thank you, sir. I think there is a question to the same. Okay, so there is one question related to the suggestion you have given. I would like to add here only. For all moratorium differing, the EMI doesn't have compounding loss. I mean, there is no interest calculation for the deferred period. So this is one reference somebody has given.
Yes, that's right. There has been, I just want to quickly answer that. There has been that point of debate which says that, if you are deferring your moratorium, one, your CIBIL ratings may come down. Second, your credit worthiness will be, not considered as valid. And most importantly, you are ending up paying another extra installment. But that's fine, because if you are ending up paying another extra installment, you are also looking at the future. You're also looking at some source of income to come back to you, because remember, your fees is going to get revised in the next 2 years, because this extra EMI which you pay as interest deferment will be towards the last part of your EMI. That means you are buying time. So maybe that is also a possibility.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, there was a very valid question in the list of questions we received, and somebody asked that how can we maintain that? You have almost answered that part, that somebody can go for some SEBI loans and we can go for such things. But what about a bit of a cash flow when it comes to rent and specifically the salaries? Because you have already answered that Jain Group has made sure that you are maintaining certain methods in which you are making sure that teachers are getting some part of the salary or whatever way you are maintaining. So how can a school, because we are not, a school is not getting any income source, but they have to make sure that the people associated with them have their family life settled through the financial expenses they meet. Yes. So how can they actually maintain that cycle, the financial cycle which was earlier there?
Well, I think that's actually a catch-22 situation, because you don't have funds coming in, you don't have any inflows, and you need to still let your outgoes go as it is. So I think, again, I will go with a couple of options. Option number one, there are several models which many schools and managements who I know and I'm talking to are toying with the idea, and they have also implemented it. For example, one is our own model, what I said, where you pay them 40, 50% or 60% of the salaries and tell them that we will give you a deferred repayment towards the September or October time of the year. So that way their safe money or the investment money is not definitely lost. It's like instead of depositing in a bank or an FD, you think that you're depositing into the school and we'll give it back to you and honor that payment. Number one. Number two is some people have come up with a retainer model where they said that, okay, on the salary slabs you are all working, they come up with a retainer slab. Say, for example, if you are drawing somewhere around 35,000 salary, you get some 15,000 rupees as a retainer. So you will be put on the retainer model and you are paid for these crisis months of April and May and maybe June. And that way you are reducing your costs, because even they, for example, they are also reducing their cost by staying at home because they don't have options to go shopping, they don't have things. But at the end of the day, the securing of the job is more important. So the argument with the retainer model people are saying is we are securing their job. At the same time, we are also keeping the sustenance going. So that's the second model. The third model is, is something like, you are trying to say that, okay, my non-teaching staff and my other staff, I'm completely not paying them. I'm saying that anyway, you're not working, you're not even doing online classes, you're not engaging with students, and treat this as a no pay, no work kind of a period. and I will only continue to take care of those teachers who are handling my online classes, and I will do that. There are some managements who are even doing that. They've come up with no pay, no work policies, especially the low cost private schools. But then the point is, I am doubtful if this approach can survive beyond 2 to 3 months, because at the end of the day, if you're saying I'm protecting your job, but I will not be paying you salary, I wonder if these people will continue to come back to you after everything is normal.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Chandra, on this. I would love to ask a question on the first model you have shared with us, that maybe we will pay the salaries by end of the school academic year, maybe in August or September. There were many questions in relation to one perspective, that school managements have this fear. What if students don't turn up into the schools by end of the academic year? And that's, I believe that I'm a mother. I have 2 kids, and my son is 6 years old, and he's in grade 2. Trust me, if you tell me today that, so we are paying the fees though, but if you ask me that, so you have to send your child in school in August, considering the present scenario when the cases are increasing, me living in Ahmedabad, I am not ready and prepared to send my child to school in that particular scenario. Now, we may be paying the fees and we are comfortable with an online setup, but many parents are not. So the irony is, they want classes, they want regular curriculum to happen, but they don't want to pay the fee. So we all know about the ironical situation. So what if situation, which is there in mind of every school administrator, I believe, and they are scared that maybe this academic year will be a big loss, or it will just burn out their pockets in some way or the other, because students won't turn up. At least half year's income is already gone. People won't pay for 6 months, as they have their own settings, that we were teaching students at home, or we were taking care of the kid parallelly. So why should we pay you in that scenario? And what if August doesn't turn out to be a good scene, considering the social distancing norms the government is putting in and planning to? Most of the schools cannot open up in that scenario, for sure. So what do you say, that how we will sustain that model at that moment specifically?
Yeah, I mean, at this point in time, the best my answers can sound is completely guesswork, because none of us can predict what the future is going to be in August. But let me tell you my perspective. I agree totally with Surbi, what you mentioned, that as a parent, when I put on the cap of a parent, I'm not at all comfortable sending my child, whatever may be the age group. I'm not comfortable jeopardizing his or her career or future by sending him to the school. That's possible. And in fact, to support your claim, the latest report, the research which came out in one of the newspapers here, mentioned that less than 10%, to be precise, 6.25% of the people actually have confirmed that we are comfortable sending our children back to school the minute the schools open. That's 94% or close to 94% of the people saying, no, we are not comfortable. So that's the statistics, right? Now that's true. That's absolutely true. And if I'm a parent, I put myself there, I will definitely say 1 year or my child's life, I will pick up my child's life, not 1 year. Right. But having said that, there is also light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, if you refer to the Delhi High Court judgment, which came up, which says if the school is conducting e-classes, online classes, then the parents have to pay the fees. So that itself is a big boost for schools and school management, that when you are properly conducting e-learning, and there is also guideline for it, you can't really conduct a e-learning classroom from morning 8:30 to 4:30 in the afternoon, or 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock, like how schools are normally done. They say that 4 hours of online learning for classes which are in the middle school and high school is a must. And if the schools are able to do that, then the parents will have to pay up the fee. For example, I'll give you the state of Hyderabad, I mean Telangana, Hyderabad. They have passed a rule saying that you are free to charge from parents tuition fee. You cannot charge transport fee, you cannot charge any other additional fee, but tuition fee you can charge, and that too on a monthly basis. So they say that you can divide your entire annual fee by removing all the food and beverages, transportation, books, uniform, if you're charging, or whatever other additional fee, and then use the tuition part of it, the term fee, divide it by 10 to 11 months, and then you can charge it from your parent. Now, what is the fix here is, the parents have to also be a little more lenient in their thinking, because when you go to the parent and say please pay up the fees monthly basis or whatever, the parent if turn around and say no, I'm not sending my child, I'm not going to pay this year, or I am doing half the work which normally is not my cup of tea, but why should I pay the full fee? Now, this is where we are entering into dangerous waters. If parents start thinking like that, it's a transaction. If it is a transaction and he says, oh, you give me and then I'll take it, and I give you and then you take it, it's not going to work. This is where we need to be more polite, and that's where the school managements are on a sticky wicket, where we cannot argue and end up in a debate with the parent. That is where we need the governments to back us up. See, in this scenario, governments need not give us money, but if they don't roll out government orders over orders and kind of side themselves with the parent community by explicitly saying no school needs to collect fees, no school can ask the parent any fee, that itself is enough for school managements to lose hope and also to face the consequences. So I think that is where the government needs to come up and say that let's be fair, like how they are looking at shops and establishments and private companies, they need to look at schools also. And here, I don't think any school management can do beyond what they can do of requesting or coaxing or coercing the parent, and also trying to give them some value in the available means.
Okay, so that was a valid point that yes, we need that government support, and that is very much needed. Uh, there was a question which actually came up, and there was some schools talking about that we are stuck in a situation, and the whole situation came in March. As you said, the timing was completely bad as a school, we must say, and they were still expecting a recovery for the payments for the previous academic year. Certain schools, so every school has their own way of collecting fees, and usually result day is the time you expect that yes, parents will clear the dues and the student will be moved to the next grade, or maybe for the next grade they get the particular fees. And now there were certain schools who were saying that even our fees for the previous academic year are still stuck up. So, is there any hope as a school? I want to know if how it works in government norms. That can how can they demand for the services they have already given up to parents and the fees is still pending? So, what can be done in that scenario for the services paid already?
All right. So I would like to answer this at two levels. One is at the regulatory level, and the second one is at the practical level. Right. So regulatory level, I have not come across any regulation, any government order which says you cannot collect the previous year's fees. There is nothing, any state government or central government has stopped any school that you don't go back and ask the parent about the previous year fees. But coming to the practical level, as you said, March was the month where they were expecting that huge fund flow to come in to help them survive the summer months till the school reopens. And now that did not happen, unfortunately, for all the schools. Now, practically speaking, what we need to do is, I think the schools should very strategically focus on retaining your students. Retain your student, keep the student back in your school, and let them go to the next grade as per the government norms, because up to grade 9 there is an automatic promotion. So get them back, be very very collaborative with your parent, try to extend that, because that's the best thing you can do in the situation. If you end up in an argument and say you pay me and then enter, you pay me and subscribe my online classes, that's not going to happen. Because let me tell you this, even they are going through a lot of troubles. Their companies or organizations where they are working, their businesses also have not ran for the last 2.5 months. Now we need to win and win. Win-win is the solution. So first of all, start strategically by retaining them. Let them be in your school. Second, I'm sure once the situation normalizes, when you go back to them and say, listen, you have something which is due and I want you to pay up, and please, take it up now, because now that things are getting normal, I'm sure at least 80 or 85% of the people will definitely pay up. I'm not saying 100% will pay up, but I'm saying 80-85% of the people will definitely pay up, because no parent would like to do this kind of a short change with the school management or the school. They may delay it, they will not deny it. So this is the approach.
So I agree with you. If services are provided the way they should be, and if parent is satisfied, a satisfied parent will always go ahead and pay the fees when the time is correct. So that makes a very valid point, because even they are going through a very tough time at their own end. Now, there was also one more question which somebody asked that uh, what. So I don't know like how much this question fits into this scenario, but there's a school administrator who wants to ask, is there some sort of way we can generate new income? I'm still struggling with this question because we all are still struggling with the present income sources for sure. But they have a question that what if there is a way that they can actually build up a parallel structure for an income source or a new income source so that they can suffice to the expenses in hand. So what do you have to say about it?
Okay, so well, I think I don't know whether this answer rightfully fits into the new income strategy, but I can talk about new ways of rising income. That much I can tell you. For example, one option is there are all these people who are trying to finance the fees of the school parents. So, for example, I don't want to take any company because I'm not subscribing to any service provider here, but there are a lot of these people who do these education loans in the schools where parents will get the opportunity to pay it on a monthly basis to them, but they will give you the fees upfront or in 2 or 3 tranches to the school management. So what you can do is, because the parents, because I've spoken to some of them, what they are saying is, since parents are all going through, employees are going through tough times, they are able to give a 3 month or a 2 month holiday. So for example, if the fees of the school is say 30,000 rupees, and that amount needs to be paid to them in installments, that agency is ready to pay 30,000 rupees to the school upfront or in 2 installments. So you will get 15,000 in May and you will be paid in 15,000 in December. That's the income part to the school. Now from the parental side, the benefit is they don't have to pay the EMIs from June. They will have to pay the EMIs only in August or September. So that 3 month holiday, that agency is ready to give it to the parent. Plus, they will get an additional accidental insurance or a health insurance, and even COVID-19 is covered in that insurance policy. So with all these things, the school management can look at having some kind of a lump sum coming in, which is their fee. It's like one way saying you are getting your fees in advance, right? So that will take care of your working capital management. That's one of the solutions. But alternative sources of income as a school, I really doubt if you can bring up anything, because I don't think, of course there are ideas, but none of these ideas are so easily implementable in a school setup.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we have Dr. Sunil over here. He would love to ask you a question, and I want to make the session as interactive as possible. So I'm unmuting him. So Dr. Sunil, please go ahead and ask your question.
Thanks for the due time. More than a question, I would like to add point on the Eureka, where the school said that how to generate the second income. So if I'm allowed to add the points here, a couple of schools have the different faculty members who are the expert in the subjects. So maybe 2-3 schools collaborate together, develop a content, maybe the learning content, and they share there with their students, and they can sell or transfer the rights to the other schools, those who are not able to generate this video content or the online content, and can generate the second income from the other schools where they are from the schools which are in the remote area or in other area or not capable enough to generate the quality online content, maybe the offline video or the live sessions.
Okay,
so offload it.
Thank you, Dr. Sunil. You gave us a B2B model. We maybe somebody wants to use it, they can, and maybe to answer question of one of the participants. Okay, so I would like to go ahead and ask you one more question. Though in your initial questions that I asked, you suggested that we have to divide our expenses in a way that strategically, that what to pay for and what not to pay for, and just draft a plan how we want to spend our expenses further. I have this question for schools. So transport is one sector in school, which I feel nobody is talking about, but according to me is totally under a radar of getting affected badly. And for schools who made sure that the transport was completely, they were borrowing the transport from outside, so they are still, it was still okay. But there are schools who have their own vehicles, and most of the schools have vehicles on loans, to be very clear. So these are the areas where one of the participants asked that what to do in that scenario, though I think the answer would be almost the same. which you have asked previously, but still, if you could just help out somewhere around the transport sector of schools.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, and I understand because if you say that some of the schools own them, we are one of them. I mean, we have a fleet of buses where we can give some of the state-run transport sector or transport units fight for their money because we have so many buses parked, and that's something which is very difficult to manage because you got to service your EMIs and you got to maintain them. Because remember, when a vehicle is parked, it is tougher to maintain them because they will come up for heavy maintenance. It's like an aircraft. It makes money only when it is flying. If it is stopped, it's gone. So that's the situation. So one of the answers I can give for transport is, I don't know how far it is practical, but I was thinking when the question was asked to me is, you're very clear. What we know is very clear that at least till August, September, schools will not function. And in cases where you are running, or rather you're owning those buses, try to look up if you can provide those buses for some institution or organization, maybe a private company, which can utilize that inside the city limits because you have a permit issue. If you have that, then you can kind of recover that amount. I know you need to take valid permissions from the government, but I think that is possible because this is extraordinary situation. If you can do that, at least if you can recover your EMI amount and a little bit on maintenance and the driver's salary, you are engaging your buses, but at the same time, you're able to offset that cost and expense.
Okay. Thank you very much. That actually makes a point. And what is your suggestion that if the buses are on lease and you are the one who are just paying fees, so do you suggest that some sort of a income should go at that end or not? It's more of a
See, yeah, it's a ethical issue here because many agreements should have, at least almost all agreements should have the force majeure clause. But having said that, I know 9 out of 10 agreements do not have that because we kind of copy paste our agreements and sign them and then get going with it because that's how we work. This is where the legalities have to be very clearly thought of when you begin a transaction. Maybe this is a learning time for us, but going forward, we will keep all those things foolproof. But coming back to the question, when you say that if you have it on a lease model, if you have it, then you will have to come up with an arrangement. The same model will work there. Listen, boss, you have not paid your drivers and your escorts or whatever. You are not running, your fuel cost is not there. So I will only give you some minimum maintenance to handle the salaries of your employees. Apart from this, I don't ask me for anything else because I don't have a source of income. Maybe I will give you maybe at a later point in time. So you have to get into a deferred agreement with them also, because at the end of the day, understanding is what will work in this scenario. If you go by the line, you will not be able to run the show and you will not be able to succeed. So you'll have to come up with an understanding.
Okay, I think that was a very valid point that going further, we must be pretty apt with our legal formalities. We must make sure that all the documentations are well kept and this COVID-19 experience is to be added in all the documents and all the academic plans we are making in future. Now,
I just want to add here before you go there, just an addition to this, if I may. See, I'll give you my experience. We have a lot of these institutions and we have a lot of these buildings which are on rented model as well or leased model as well. We have a force majeure clause, and if it's an act of God or nature or whatever it is, then that kind of a period is treated as a rent holiday period because the school makes its income only through fees and operations. So that clause actually has come to our rescue today, and even the owners are happy, comfortable, saying that, yeah, we understand this, we will take care. Worst case scenario, you have a deposit there and they have earned some return on that deposit which you have made. So you can always say that, boss, you've already earned it. So now let me live and survive, and then I'll come back and make good for you.
I think you gave me a point for my article, the rent holiday period. For sure, I will add it over there.
Yeah.
So thank you for this tip. I think it's a very valid point to add in all our agreements as schools who are creating those. Now I have Banu Khan who has a question that I think, and she has a statement. I would like to convert it more into a question. It is not allowed to use the school buses for any other purpose. So I believe, are we talking about using the school buses for any other purpose so that we can compensate on the expenses, because transport will begin before the school begins in some way or the other. So what is your feedback as in the legality front, I must say?
So that's what I mentioned, right? So you cannot definitely do public transport with your buses, but you can kind of offload your buses for a temporary period by seeking the RTA approvals for some of these companies who run them for their employees. Now, if you see, all the corporate companies are permitted to run their employees or transit their employees from the office place to the home and home to office. Now, they also must have hired some of those buses, because for all I know, none of these companies, at least majority of them, do not own any buses, right? So you kind of, as an association or as a school, if you can go and approach and then get that permission to some of these companies where they can use your buses, pay you some amount so that your EMI is paid, and then and it's a temporary arrangement. So temporary arrangements need temporary permissions. It is not something which is there in the constitution or it is there in the law. I'm just giving you an idea. It can work. I've not tried it because it has not come to my table as of now. You raised the question, so I'm trying to give you an answer.
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Chandra, I'm not a financial expert. I'm not a person with that much expertise into education as you are, or maybe others on this platform today are. But I was trying to analyze as a layman that how should I make my plans in the foresee future that we can see. So I thought that what is more valid? Should I predict that I will have students in August and I completely plan my financial setting and my commitments with the organizations? It's not just I have a commitment at one place. As a school administrator, there are 10 other stakeholders. You have to make sure that you are satisfying with their financial component that you have to give them, for sure, other than the staff and the transport maybe. But according to me, which I thought so, and I need your suggestions how well it could work, that what if we come up with a model with probabilities, that if the school begins in August, that's how I'm collecting my fees, that's the amount I'm expecting that should come. And then second, what if my school starts or opens up in the month of November or December, and that's the model I should come up with. And what if the complete financial year doesn't turn the complete academic year, to be precise, doesn't turn up good, and that should be my commitment with all the stakeholders and everybody who's associated into the financial setup with me. So what is your suggestion? Can we work upon such model which is working more on the probabilities based on the predictions we are doing right now, like lockdown 2.0 or lockdown 3.0 or lockdown 4.0? I must say school plan 1.0 or school plan 2.0 or school plan 3.0. What about this?
Well, I don't think so. First of all, nor me or anybody here can claim to be an expert here, because we are all learning in this situation. We have never been in this situation before. So that is one thing. But coming to the question in terms of should we have multiple plans, I think that is not going to work. Probabilities are not going to make it reality. Instead, I would rather suggest another approach. And my approach would be like this. Let's begin with what we know and go towards the unknown. What I mean by that is, listen, let's understand that your preschools, your pre-primary schools or kindergarten schools or whatever brand you have, I don't think they will come back to operations before December. Let's be very realistic. I don't think so, because they don't. I mean, the least affected if they lose a 1 year is that category of children. So they will not be bothered about 2020. They've already deleted this year from their lives in terms of the academic year. Now, you have grade 1 to grade 10 or grade 12. Now here, first point you have to understand is, going forward, that is starting from June, the schools are all going to become hybrid schools. Okay, so you are either a hybrid school or you are a once upon a time school. You are no more, right? So you got to be hybrid. When I say hybrid, what do I mean? 40 to 50% will be online engagement and 50 to 60% will be offline engagement. Why? Because you got to engage with your children. If the rule comes saying social distancing, your classrooms cannot accommodate 30, 40 or 25 children. You got to cut it by half. That means you cannot increase your staff strength. You will have to run it in 2 batches, or you have to tell them, those roll number 1 to 10 don't come to school on Mondays. Roll number 11 to 20 be in the school, but 1 to 10 stay at home, log into my class and learn from there. So that means your teacher should be prepared to talk into the camera as well as talk at the class at the same time. That's what I mean by hybrid model. So you got to realize that that is going to be one of the realities going forward. The second thing which I want to tell you is don't plan for August, plan for June, plan for July. I mean, I understand up north, the summer is really sharp and harsh. You cannot start your classes in June, but online classes can happen even in June. You don't have to wait till August or September for the rains to come and then you start your classes. So plan for June. When I say plan for June, get your teachers onboarded and tell them to accept and make them accept and train them to accept that online engagement is the reality. They have to do it. They got to do it. There's no choice, because preparation online also takes a good amount of time. Let me tell you my example. The minute lockdown was announced in the month of March, the 1st of April to the 30th of April, my entire academic team, we have a Center for Professional Development, they got onto their tasks and they rolled up their sleeves and they did 3 hours of online engagement with teachers. Every day, 3 hours of online engagement with teachers, where teachers were given topics and asked to present and teach the teachers. So it's like train the trainers. 30 days, if you ask me, are we perfect? We haven't even scratched the surface. Today, as I'm talking, they're all preparing templates, presentations, and the first thing they are doing is buying a piece of green cloth where they can put it in their house as a background, and we are creating virtual backgrounds which they can have with the logo of the school and a typical classroom feeling, and teacher has to be there, and we got to upgrade their internet connections, provide them gadgets, because we did not know that the schools will allow staff to come back to their buildings. So these are the preparations we should do. And if you're bothered about we are a remote school, we are a school who don't have access to this, let me tell you this, it's a myth. Your mobile phone is good enough. Today, nobody is expecting you to look like Aishwarya Rai or Shah Rukh Khan on the screen. Nobody wants lighting and sound effects. People want clarity of content, clarity of concept, and availability. So your mobile phone is good enough. You can't access video, forget about it, go for audio. You can't access audio, record your thing, upload it on your private YouTube channel, make it a private link so that other than your school students, nobody can see, and share that private link to all your class. They can watch it whenever they want. So there are solutions, there are options. Look for that. And let me tell you this, we are discussing finance, but let me divert and tell you the last point. Finance is the mother of all disciplines, but it is the discipline which will give you the finance. So if you are disciplined in reaching out to all your stakeholders, you will get your money. It may get delayed, but you will get it. But if you sit quiet and say, what is this? I'm not getting my fees. I can't run the show. I am doomed. Sorry, nobody's going to come and help you because everybody is in the same mess.
I very much second your thought. All of us are in the same mess, and you have to be helping out yourself in this present situation. That I must agree. We have somebody from Sanskar Valley School, and they have a question for you. I would love to unmute them. So, sir, please, can you ask your question? And you are unmuted.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm unable to unmute you. Just a second. Sir, can you please cross-check?
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello, sir. My voice is audible.
Yes. Please go ahead.
Good evening, sir. My question is this. If any parents come with the option that in 1 or 2 years or 3 years, 1, 2 or 3 years, according to their budget, he can give fees in installment in future, then we can have any bond or any affidavit we can do or not, like this? Any security we can take or not?
So there are a lot of things connected to this, sir. I would rather suggest it in a short way. Don't get into all this. I don't think it is acceptable for a school to get into all this. But as I said in the beginning, your name is, can I get your name, sir?
Anil Kumar. Anil Kumar, sir. Anil Kumar.
Okay. So Mr. Anil, so the best way is, as I suggested previously, there are these financing agencies which are in this place. So why do you have to give the option to the parent to pay in 3 years when an agency is ready to pay it to you in 1 shot or 2 shots, and they are giving the option for the parent to pay it in 12 months or whatever? So they will take up the collaterals, they will take up everything because that is their business, that is their bread and butter. As a school, our business, our bread and butter is to give quality education and make sure that the children are safe and secure.
So I think this suggestion is very much valid. That
Thank you, sir.
instead of we directly getting into this, it's a big responsibility actually. When you come ahead and say that, okay, fine, I will give you this financing option, or I will turn your fees into these many EMIs for next 3 years. It's a very big responsibility, and it will be a big burden on the school. So the better way out is that you actually give this responsibility to some outside unit which can take care, and you can just sit there and take care of the school instead, the academic, which is more of your concern area.
Yeah,
And
since I'm seeing that a lot of concerns are coming with this, at the risk of telling their names, I will tell the names, but please don't think I am endorsing any of them. I have no association with any of them, right? So there is Neve Financing. I will type it in the chat box. It is Neve Financing. Then there is Finance Cur, and then there is Finance Peer. So these are some of the names which I can give you. So please look at them, and I'm sure if you Google them, you will get maybe some more options. I'm not endorsing any of them, but you can evaluate options, and they serve Pan India. They have a NBFC of their own, non-banking financial institution, so they'll be able to support you. Thank you.
I believe the units will be quite pleased with you for sure, Dr. Chandra. And yes, this is actually a wonderful idea, I must say, a takeaway for many budget schools, because we were getting this question now and again, what about and how to manage that section if parents are coming with a problem that I cannot take care of the finances. So yes, we have an answer. You can actually get it financed from a unit. So that makes a very valid point. Dr. Chandra, you already addressed this part very fairly, that preschools are at risk. And I still want to open up this matter again, because I have 5 to 7 participants who were from the preschool area, and they have their complete concerns when it comes to what is the future of preschool for next 1 year. Where should they go? What should they do? And how should they manage everything? So is there any substitute to the preschool setting that they can actually run? I know schools who are running chains of preschool. So there are actually schools who have just their complete concentration is only on preschool students or kids. So do you have some sort of a financial model or maybe a business model for them in which they can sustain themselves for at least 1 year as a suggestion?
Okay, so again, there are a couple of options which are available, but before I get into the options, I want to create this kind of a system here. Now, one, there are schools which have kindergarten in their own school.
Yeah.
Second, there are brands which have a few kindergartens which work as feeder schools. And third, there are, as you said, chain of preschools whose business model revolves around 0 to 6 years. Right? So different people need different solutions. So I cannot give you one size fit all kind of a solution. Now let me address the fact with feeder school and schools which have kindergarten in their own system, right? The first 1 and 2 category. Now, as I said, and I'm going to stand on that the preschool business or the preschool market is going to be worst affected in this academic year. Now that's a writing on the wall. Having said that, where is the question we need to address? Your preschools, if I'm not wrong, especially the feeder schools, may not be, 90% of the time, may not be owned buildings. They are rented buildings in a locality which will give you feeder. I think it's time for you to decide, either have a conversation with the landlord and say, this is what it is, till we start operating, we will not be able to honor the rent. We can either vacate it or we can hold it, assuring you that we will resume the minute things become better. Okay, and moving your furniture from that place to here is a 1 week job maximum, right? So that is one thing. So cut down your costs, which are your overheads, your rent, your electricity, your maintenance, your security, your housekeeping. All of this is dead investment in this context. Now let's come to the big question. The question of what do we do with the preschool teachers? Right? Now there are two things. One, you can conduct online program for your preschoolers. But as I speak again, Karnataka government this morning has banned all preschools from doing online teaching with children because screen time is affecting them. Now these are very, very wrong umbrella statements which come up from the government side. Because as it is, if you look at it, there are 15 lakh schools in the country and 9 lakh schools are owned by the government and they are shut for the last 50 plus days. Now, if the preschools, which are again majority of them in the unorganized sector, and you give a blanket statement saying that you will be penalized, your license will be cancelled if you do online, what happens to those couples, working couples who are working? How do the children get engaged? So that's a different conversation. But if you can engage with your children in some other states where there is no banning, please do that. And remember, the screen time should not be more than 12 to 15 minutes when you're engaging with children. But your class can be for 30 minutes. How do you do that? You give them an activity. For example, okay, red, color red. So come on, go around your house and pick up anything which you can say as red and come back to me and show me on the screen. So that way what happens, the child is away from the screen, at the same time the child is in the screen, and it's easy for you to manage. So these are some of the techniques you should do. Second option, if you have teachers and you can't do online classes, like I have schools in Bangalore, our headquarters is Bangalore and Karnataka. What we can do is, when you do online classes for your middle school and high school and even primary school, you need a shadow teacher. For example, now if I am talking, Surbi here is managing the technology. She's able to look at the questions. She's able to see how the audience are responding. She's able to take care of a lot of things where I can focus on delivering my content. Same way, your preschool teachers can develop as assistant teachers to the main teachers. So that way your classes become effective. Because remember, in online, your class needs to be shorter and more crisper. That means you will have to repeat your class. You can't do a 45-minute class. You can't do a 2-hour class. You have to do a 20-25-minute class and then repeat the class. So the concept has to be repeated. So that way what happens, your assistant teacher will be handy for your main teacher. Thereby you are engaging them in a meaningful way and still taking care of their salaries. So that's the first and second. Yes.
No, I think that the first point quite makes a valid point, that because people were worried how to engage the preschool teachers, and if there's a shadow teacher, we work on a shadow teacher concept in regular school for sure. But I think this idea of having a shadow teacher in regular virtual classroom makes a very valid point, because we see how students are getting disengaged, especially in primary classes. They're not able to focus on the screen for such a long duration.
Yes.
So yes, I agree to it. And yes, you were continuing with your
So
point.
the third point, where there are the chain of preschools who have no other thing because their entire business model revolves on 0 to 6. I think that is a B2B solution, because they are a conglomerate of preschools, maybe 100, 200, 60, 70, and they have a army of teachers, maybe somewhere around 400 teachers or 500 teachers or whatever it is. So the best thing what you can do, because it's online, you have no problem. Some of the schools which are a chain of schools, that is a chain of K-12 schools, can have a professional B2B MOU with them, where those teachers can be your activity teachers online. All right. So you can run your school and you can say, I will deliver physics, maths, chemistry, biology, languages. That's my core. But these set of teachers will deliver art, will deliver craft, will deliver music, will deliver dance, Zumba, or whatever. And then that way you are removing the load from your domain and you're transferring it, and it's a B2B solution. That's another model which you can explore.
Okay, so now we are just approaching. I'd never realized that it's already 5. And I just want to ask a last question and want to make
Alright.
the session open for everybody, because you are sharing million of worth of knowledge today. And we can continue staying here for next 2 hours also. But yes, you have given us your time and we value that time. So we will just take 10 minutes, 5 to 10 more minutes.
Sure.
My last question from my end, and then I will just address the question from the audience, that we talk about emotional well-being, we talk about social well-being. For school leaders, I believe we need financial well-being, or some way they are completely in a stress situation. So somebody asked me that what to do. I'm completely stressed with this financial situation right now. So do you have some stress bursting tips or some suggestions they can just pick up from you as a question?
It's an interesting question, first of all, to say, because if I say meditation, that's cliche, right? I can't do that. So I think the one thing which we should all do is remember, everything is temporary. This is not going to be permanent. This is not going to be the situation forever. So keep that, because that gives us hope, and hope is very powerful. So we need to keep that in mind. The second thing which you should do is communicate with your people, because when you share your feelings, when you express your worries and concerns, it becomes lighter, but at the same time it opens up a lot of ideas. Now, for example, what we are doing, I'm not giving you money here, I'm not transacting any loans, Surbi is not trying to finance all of you who joined our session, but we are able to come together and explore each other's thoughts and ideas, and that will give us the confidence to go back and do something different in our place. So I think first is hope, second is communication so that we get confidence, and the last thing is most important is, if you are able to hold this, you can hold anything. Because remember, leaders are made in times of adversity. Adversity is what makes leaders. So if you go through this, you have a boost to say, hey, I have survived lockdown 1 to 4. What is life? I can survive it. I can handle it. So tell that to yourself more often. I think this is what I can give you. I don't have a magic formula to say all your financial worries will vanish if you chant that mantra. I don't have it.
Thank you, Dr. Chandra. Actually, you just reminded me of my grandfather, who used to say that we have seen a partition. You kids don't know anything, and if we have survived partition, we can survive anything. I think that's the same point you had over here with lockdown situation. So we have some questions over here, and we have Mr. Purohit, I believe. So I'm unmuting you, please. You can ask your question.
Yes, Mr. Purohit.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry, my video was not on, so I was mistaken for Purohit. Mr. Purohit, I'm Aarti here.
Okay.
So basically, my question is, I have a preschool, and it's it falls in the third category, and you very well explained about all the 3 categories of preschool. So thank you for that. My question is, I can speak to my landlord. He has been supporting me for so long. Should I hold the preschool till the month of December if he's ready to take care of the rent? Because I believe next year things will get better. There's probably nothing else that I know, nothing else that I can do, and I've already invested a lot of money. So hopefully next year we'll be able to recover it, because things are not going to be the same forever. We'll return back to normalcy sooner or later. You said December, I take it as June. Okay, maybe next academic year straight away we can delete 2021 academic year from our lives. So should I do that? Because I'm really in a dilemma.
Fair enough. I see your point. I want to ask you a little more. One, where do you belong? Which city are you from?
I'm from Kalyan, District Thane, Mumbai.
Mumbai. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Second question is, one school or you have a chain of schools?
It's a chain of school, and I've taken a franchisee basically.
Okay.
So the franchisee support is there. They've come up with an online model, but then parents are not really willing to pay. I mean, we can understand they've got, the way you made it very clear, if my child doesn't study for a year, I'll be okay with it if I end up saving that money.
Yes. Okay. So my quick answer to you, ma'am, I see your point, Ms. Aarti. So I think 2 things. One, you can, first of all, my advice is, I appreciate your hope, and I want you to hold on to the preschool. Don't give up. If your landlord is cooperating, if your master franchisee or your person who's sharing the brand with you is cooperating, you have no reason to give up. Number 1.
Okay.
Okay. Number 2, in Bombay or in Mumbai or Thane and other places, what I know is, look at people who are double income families.
Yeah.
Okay, where the husband and the wife are busy and they have somebody, they need somebody to take care. And very quickly, what you should do, you should position your preschool chain or the set of preschools as the most safe and secure preschool. Not about quality education. Look at safety and security and reach out to them, because if they are working, they need somebody to provide daycare, at least qualified daycare.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And you have to be safe and secure, sanitation and all of that.
Fortunately for me, we have that. We have a policy where we take the temperature of the child every day when he walks in.
Fantastic.
Not just now, it is from day 1. So now I can make sure that that social distancing part is there even in the daycare.
So that way, what happens, that becomes your new business model for this year. and then you're back to your normal model the minute everything is fine.
Okay.
Right.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Bharti. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and thank you so much, sir. The session was really, really, enriching, practical, and really it took care of a lot of things. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so now we have Jigna Shah with a question. I would love to put it as the last question because other questions are coming up, but they're more towards other area of education other than finance. So here we have Jigna.
Yeah.
You are unmuted. Yeah.
Hi. Hello.
Yes, I can hear you, ma'am.
Yeah. Hello, sir. I just want to know, like, how we can engage our teachers as you like. I'm a preschool owner, franchisee owner, right? So the salary part, as you had talked, but if we go with the online sessions with the teachers, so it will be work from home sort of, which will be for a very less hours and all that. So how we should go with the salary part, which will not be the usual salary.
Okay, so I just typed one
means-
website.
yeah.
I just typed one website for all of you. It's called
Hmm.
teacher.com or teacher. You just Google teacher, but with an extra R. I am not sure about .com or whatever, but the word is teacher.
Okay. Yeah, I saw. Yeah.
Why do I give you this? Is this website has around 100 plus jobs which are work from home for teachers.
Okay.
Okay, people can make their money sitting at home so that their basic family is taken care. And I think that's a good option for all the preschool teachers where they don't have the schools to pay, but the schools can become the facilitator. And you can say, okay, go to, and you can even talk to the teacher.in. Thank you for putting that teacher.in. The people, I can connect you to them and they can kind of be a B2B partner with you, and your teachers can find some employment in this lockdown period and the ship can keep sailing. That's my answer.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you for the very good session, informative
you.
session.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Jigna. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Suji.
Okay. So thank you, Dr. Chandra. I think it was more than expected information. I came with set of 10 questions. You have given us most answers to more than 20. So that was a diversified knowledge you have actually collected in one package. I would love to host a session with you on I don't know the number of sessions I could learn from you, and we all could learn from you is immense, I believe. The knowledge that you carry.
We are all learning. I'm learning from all of you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you for your time today. Thank you, participants. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for the wonderful questions. Good answers come with wonderful questions. So you were enriching with your questions and we were able to make this session interactive enough for everybody. And thank you, and would love to have you in the next session whenever possible. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Namaste. Take care. Stay safe.
Namaste. Thank you.